Hello and welcome to 4000 and Counting, brought to you by Hurricane E-Bikes. I'm Watty. This man needs no introduction. It's Mr. Tony Hand MBE, once referred to as the great British Wayne Gretzky. I believe that was a hockey news when you retired. They actually, in fact, let me correct that. The Scottish Wayne Gretzky. What was it like when you retire and you see that plastered all over the hockey news?
It was quite surreal, Nicky. To be honest, yeah, I'm not one of these people who like to talk about myself or self-promote myself. But it was something nice because obviously when you're nowhere near the level that Wayne Gretzky was as a player, but to be talked in the same sort of paragraph in the same sentences is quite nice considering how successful he was over his career.
He was immense, and anyone in Britain would say the same about you. I'm gonna start you off with a question that I haven't prepared you for, but I'd be really intrigued to hear your answer. Obviously, when it comes to who's the best British player, your name gets mentioned, and a few other gets mentioned. I wonder, who does Tony Hand think is other than yourself? Obviously, your points speak for yourself. Other than that, who would you say the best British player is?
Uh, it's a tough one. Obviously, there's a lot of names come to mind. Like at the moment, it's obviously Liam Kirk is obviously not part of it. A great hockey player, is a good person. Anytime he worked for the national team many years. He was captain in the 18s and 20s, which obviously makes it helps when players are coaches want to coach good people as well as good players. So I think that really helps for him. But not on top of that, he's obviously a fantastic player. And I think he's done the right thing, going abroad, getting experience. For what I can gather now, he's going to Czechoslovakia, and I think Kirky will just keep on improving. He's still a young boy, so I think he's obviously up there as one of the best, if not the best. I think Colin Shields, he's another guy who's a really nice guy, and also a great player. So I think, as you say, I think something's in Nicky. Something's it's in errors because it's like,
Yeah.
like someone like Wayne Gretzky now maybe wouldn't be the same player as in the game at the moment, because it's a different style of play. There's a lot more kind of four lines. There's got kind of four lines that are really good hockey players rather than, if you went back 30, 40 years ago, you'd have your two stroke three good lines, and the fourth line would just be guys who can went out there just causing mayhem to a certain extent. So I think it's how you do it in your era. I think when it's like any sport, football. Like, can you go back to who's the best? Was it Pele, Maradona? Was it? Again, somebody who's playing, obviously springs to mind at the moment.
Messi, Ronaldo, those boys get chucked
Messi,
in.
Ronaldo, they guys. So you can, but the things have changed so much. The technology, they're athletes now. I don't think there were as much athletes back then. I think there were more obviously great players, but because of strength conditioning, what we're eating, psychology, they get so much help these days to get to the top. So yeah, it depends. I think a lot on the era, but I think for me, the two probably the best players spring to mind was probably for us was Liam Kirk and Colin Shields.
It's interesting because the four names that tend to spring up are you three and Lobby.
Lobby's definitely up there again, definitely up there with these guys, but he was a different type of player. Lobby was a big strong player. Lobby, I know, about 6'2", and I think he was weighing about 200, but his skill was up there with the best of these guys.
Oh yeah, I got to play with him on the tail end down in Guildford, and still learning stuff off of him like every shift. It's mad how good he was and how good he was in the room. Super funny. It's always good when
he's a funny guy. Definitely funny. One of the funniest guys I've played with.
Yeah, the British game has kind of come full circle. We've gone from 94. We missed out on a lot of world championships. We're now back at the top table once again under Pete Russell and Corey and Adam. We've got dual nats, but nowhere near as many dual nats as when you boys went away in 94. Talk us through going through that trip. And I think there was only 5 of you British boys on that team. I think it's kind of role reverse now. We're kind of like 5 imports, 6 imports. How do you sit on all that debate?
I think obviously back then it was probably way too much when we were in the A pool, and I think we had about, as I say, was it 15 or 16 imports in the national team. But if you actually went around Europe or in the world at the time, a lot of the countries were the same. Like Italy were the same. I don't know about teams like Denmark and Germany were probably the same to a certain extent. Maybe not as many as that, but teams were just looking for dual national players so obviously they could move up the world rankings. But sometimes it's a false sort of reading, because obviously we're gauging a lot of times what we're developing as a country in the UK. So I think when we had the 15 or 16s, people think, oh yeah, it's great, you've got to Pool A and it's fantastic, but we weren't even prepared as a nation to go there. We went there. I don't think we even had I'm not very sure we even had a practice before we went, and it was ridiculous in that day and age. And then people wonder why we've never done well. As I say, the old saying, if you can prepare to fail to prepare, prepare to fail, and that's exactly what we were doing. We weren't prepared ourselves, and it wasn't. It's because the domestic game was going. I think it was going right to. I don't know if it was Wembley at the time, or where the championships were, and then you would go the next game day. You'd be on the plane to go to World Championships, and nowadays it's not like that. The teams now over the past decade, or for the national teams, are well prepared for kind of even for the younger age groups, right through to the seniors, and that goes for the women's as well. But it's taken a bit of turn. I think when I first started, I think it was. I'm going back about 10, 12 years ago. I think it was Paul Thompson who actually probably started that more professionalism with the teams. They would looked after the players. They were getting exhibition matches abroad. I think we went to France. There were more training camps. There was better off-ice facilities. They were teaching the players. So I think that started the process probably about 10, 12 years ago. And I think now, they're well looked after, and they're given every opportunity to succeed.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've shown over the last couple of years at that division that we can be competitive, and we can put, all Brits on the ice at times, and we're super competitive. Obviously, we're still steps behind the top nations, as you would expect. But when we're out there competing against Austria, Italy, Hungary, putting in good performances against USA, against Sweden, so there is some definite progress over the last decade.
Yeah, and they're doing fantastic. And I think, but as long as we don't start pushing it, I don't think we should keep pushing imports up. And this is just a personal. My own personal sort of views on it. I think again, when you get to the 4 or 5, again, you're starting. Yeah, it's fine. But when you start getting like your 8, 9, 10, I think that's, like you say, it's a false reading. And obviously, it then becomes like, hopefully, we're in a scenario that we have a sort of put a cap on how many individual nationals can play for the national team. In that way, it would just give us younger players the opportunity to get through, because we have a lot of good 20s, and there's a lot of good players who are sitting on the sidelines. But that's just a personal preference from myself. So hopefully that cannot be the case. But I don't have any jurisdictions over that.
Does that have to start with the Elite League then? Because it's top league in the country right now. They've just increased the import numbers by 1 this season, meaning 10 less spots for Brits in that league. Do we have to see the Elite League start bringing the numbers back down in order to prepare the national team boys correctly?
It's a tough situation, and I sympathise for not just for Elite League, and also for the development of the junior players as well. But we can. One, it's a results-based business, and it is a business for these teams where they have to pay their bills, pay their rent, pay their players, pay their houses. So they have results. So I totally understand that. But when I was first started, we only had 3. I don't know when you first started playing, Nicky, what imports were there, but we had 3 imports when I first started back a number of years ago. And that's a long time ago. I forget a lot of the stuff, but we started off, and I think we went to I think we were to Sheffield at the time, to the Super League. And if I remember right, it went to 8 imports. I might have been wrong. Went to 8.
What, in the Super League?
Yeah, was it the first days of the Super League? Was it 8?
Well, I think it was more than that. I know BNL was about 50-50, and then the Super League, was it not like 10, 11, yes, maybe even more?
Yeah, there was the BISL was a British Ice Hockey Super League. That's what I was. We had 8 in Sheffield at the time. And then the next year, Nicky, I think it went up to something like 16. And then after 2 or 3 years, so many teams were struggling away because it was a huge outlay each month trying to make sure it pays the bills. So I think it went to 16. But when we were at 3, when we were at kind of 5, I think there was a dual nationals. Sort of, you could play a dual national, which is sort of didn't count, or it did count, but the rules were changing because of the European law. The rules were changing continuously. So if I haven't got 100%, I can apologise. But we were sitting at something 3 and 5 imports, and we were selling out to 10,000 people.
Yeah.
And then I think what happened is I think sometimes that maybe the British players, they started maybe pushing the boat a little bit too much. So I think a lot of the owners went, okay, we can then start, because the European EU, we could bring in Swedes, Czechoslovakians, Finnish guys, whatever, and then we would have a team every year. We don't have to rely on anyone in Britain. Basically, they could go around and obviously choose players from the EU who were eligible to play here. So they had the opportunity to do that because obviously they're a business and they're like, okay, we want to make sure we're protecting our business. So there was that side of it as well. But I think now, as I like to see what like Sheffield Steelers are doing with theirs. I know they've taken over the Steel Dogs.
We really hope you're enjoying this Tony Hand interview. What an interview with an absolute legend. If you want to help us continue to bring more top-class interviews from players all around the world, you can help us out by hitting like, hitting subscribe, sharing this interview. As well as that, you could go to buymeacoffee/4000 and counting or Patreon/4000 and counting and make a little donation that helps the wheels keep turning here. We also have huge plans for 23-24 season. We are first heading to Sheffield and Dumfries for our first road trip of the year. I think Mark might even be coming across from Vienna. We then have Aberdeen, our first ever SNL game. We're then heading over to watch Slovan Bratislava take on Nitra and Brno take on Jaromir Jagr's team out in the Czech Republic. Following that, we're heading to the DEL. We're going to be seeing Berlin play 2 games in November, and that is how we are going to keep bringing you great content. So please go to buymeacoffee/4000 and count and help the boys out. Thank you.
It's good to see, obviously, Tony Smith took over the Steel Dogs, so I think Tony Smith can arguably one of the best owners the Elite League ever had. He runs it. I know he's not everyone's ruffles a few feathers now and then, but I think as a business, for what he puts on ice each week and off ice, I think he's been fantastic. So I would like more clubs in the Elite League to actually. I think every league team should have a sort of an affiliate team, and that way they could then maybe bring the younger players through. Because right now it is difficult because you've got a young player who maybe plays in the EIHA and SIHA. And he goes, they're going into the Elite League, and because of golf's, there is a bit of golf here because they're maybe young trying to develop. A lot of the time they don't get the ice time possibly maybe they would need, or what they were getting previously in their old club before they got there. So and then they got maybe a bit despondent, and then it's like again they don't can feel as confident or whatever in the Elite League. But there is a few players who have done that, and if they're stuck with it, they've done well. Yeah. But in the same token, though, you still have this scenario that it is difficult for the younger players to break through because of the amount of imports who are actually in the league. So when you're going on 16, what's that, 160 imports, and then you've got the imports who are probably going to come in. So you're probably not going to get much change at 180 to 200 imports, which is a huge influx of players into the country. Whilst again other leagues in Europe are trying to bring it back, and the only people who can do that is probably is leagues to get together and all the Ice Hockey UK, but. I don't know how much jurisdiction Ice Hockey UK have over the Elite League. I know maybe they can curtail work permits, but most of the players who play from the Elite League play for the national team. So there has to be a relationship there, which I totally appreciate, because again, that's their bread and butter. Yeah. So it'd be good if they could work together. Again, even at grassroots. Again, because at the end of the day, again, everyone has to feel that they're on the path. Like they say, even the young, again, coaches who coach the players when they're 10 or 12, they have to feel part of the process about getting players to the top. And I think if you just aligned everybody, it would be a lot easier. But we've been saying this for years, and it's probably going to take a few more years for that to happen.
Well, it's pretty sad, really, because I was having a conversation with someone the other day, and they said if we start looking at ice hockey as industry, and within the industry, whatever industry it may be, let's say motor cars, you've got the guy that builds the wheels, you've got the guy that does this, you've got the guy that puts it together, you've got the guy that sells it, you've got the women in the shop floor, but you've got everybody, and they're all pulling for the one industry. They're all doing their bit, but they're working together. I think we've had very disjointed governing bodies over the years, where you've got EIHA, SIHA, Ice Hockey UK all pulling in a way. They tried to have the merger, it didn't work. But that's not to say that now we can't be getting it right from grassroots, start building relationships and aiming, like you said, it might not be now, it might not be a year, it might be 2 or 3 years. But if we go with a plan, a 3-year plan, a 5-year plan, whatever it may be, to start getting the ducks in a row again.
Yeah, you're right, Nicky. What actually happens is, like, and I've been through it all levels, from grassroots to the top, and what you'll find is the players, we're not really quality tested to a certain extent. Where again the players are passed along, but they're passed along different. Like, it's not like you say, look, Barcelona football team or whatever, who they get the players when they're 10-year-old, and they will mold them into the player they want. When eventually they can come out at, say, 20-year-old to play for the senior team. The players that we get the national team, or players we get, again, they're coached by different coaches who've maybe got different philosophies, and one coach might have a philosophy, look, all offense, and then the next coach you go up as another year group, it could be all defense.
You know what time it is? It's hurricane time. And Hurricane e-bikes have not only been helping the 4,000 and Counting podcast for the last few months, they have now got a brand new relationship with the Oxford City Stars. Look out for the pictures of Mr. Petr Cech rocking out in front of the Hurricane e-bikes. We love to see the brand growing. We love to see important people like Petr getting involved, and it's good news for the Hurricane, which means it's good news for you people. Go further, go faster, get fitter. Subscribe today and take away parking charges, petrol charges, insurance charges. If you're in the city, ULEZ charges. Guess what? Hurricane, you don't need to worry about any of that. You also don't need to worry about servicing, parts, labor, warranty, because that's all taken care of. Don't believe me? Head over yourself. Go check out hurricane.ebikes right now. Tell them 4,000 and Counting sent you. You'll get a little cheeky discount in there, and you can go and enjoy their fantastic bikes. As you know, everyone knows by now, I love the Fat Boy. I really want to get one, and there's lots and lots of good choice. So head over to hurricane.ebikes right now. Check out their products. Thank you, guys.
Yeah. So just for the quality tested, if we had a sort of a unified sort of association or governing body, where we could actually make sure that these players are all going in the same direction, that would be fantastic. But we don't really have that, because we have different, like we have Scotland, England, we have you obviously got Ireland, you got a lot of players who are abroad now, who actually moving away. But it'd be nice if you could actually have some sort of coach, again, how would you say, coaching philosophy from all the younger players, not just in Scotland, not just in England, well, obviously, and obviously in Ireland, and the whole of UK. So there was a unified sort of coaching program, which the players could say, look, this is what our philosophy is, this is what we're looking for, and this is how we'll make you again a top player. But because you don't have that, you have different coaches, and I've said this for years, you have so many different style of coaching. We don't really have a style of sort of play to a certain extent. We have a lot of good coaches in Britain, but we all have to have the same sort of philosophy and the same sort of culture across the board. But which the top teams, if you go to Finland or Sweden or Denmark, they all have a coaching philosophy and they have a coaching culture. In Britain, we're still sort of find that because we're always, I don't know, say we're sort of some of these, like you said earlier on, there's too many moving parts. Really, it needs to be settled down and talked about. But hopefully, that could something that could be resolved. And,
Hopefully. I mean, I wouldn't be sitting there holding our breath for it and waiting for it to happen.
No, I don't.
Soon,
I've been. This is Nicky. This is something we've been talking about for years. But as you said earlier on, it's supposed to. We have to have a plan, a 5-10 year plan, but we don't have a 10. Again, I know the EIHA. I like what they're doing. They're getting their board together. They're getting organised, and it looks like I think they'll improve, but they have to be able to make sure that it's all working together with. Again, the other countries to try and rather than say like you guys go on your own. If we could do it together, how easier it would be. But we've been doing that for years, and I don't know if that'll ever happen in my lifetime.
Well, let's roll it back. You came flying on the scene as a young pup, still a teenager, putting points on the board right away. I believe in your second and third season, still 16, 17, you led the team in scoring for Murrayfield both years, which I mean, it's unheard of. Having a young guy come on and do that at the top league in the country. You got noticed by the Edmonton Oilers in the NHL Draft. So talk us through those couple of seasons where you're really breaking through now and through to getting drafted by Edmonton.
It was quite surreal, Nicky. Sorry, we had a player across here who was a fantastic ice hockey player. Played nearly I think over 1,000 games in the NHL. Was Gary Unger.
Yep.
And obviously he had connections in Edmonton. But at that time, I don't know if you're aware, you're probably a little bit younger than myself. There was an award given to the best player at the time, under 21 player in Britain, to get invited to the Calgary Flames training camp. But I think it was more just a gesture because the connections with Canada and America and like in Alberta and all the relationships I had with each other. It was like, as I say, it was more just to publicity. I don't choose to say publicity.
Yeah, public. Well, it's probably not
publicity. Yeah, so you could do that. Yeah. So yeah, I was invited to come along to the Calgary Flames training camp, which is obviously just sort of create publicity for the ice hockey in Britain, and obviously in Calgary with the connections with the royalty and whatever. So I thought I was going there, and I actually got a phone call, which is just shows you how things have changed over the last 30, 40 years, where it was a radio station told me, Nicky, that I had been drafted by Edmonton. Yeah, it was a radio, and I was like, "No, you've got this wrong." I says, "I'm going to Calgary," and I didn't really know what drafted meant. And I was like, "You must be having a laugh." So I said to him, "No, can you tell Edmonton I won't be there because I'm going to Calgary?" Because I didn't realize at that time when you're drafted, the NHL own your rights in North America for 2 years. So wherever you go in North America for 2 years, unless you can have a contract, they own your rights, which I wasn't aware of at the time. So all be known to me that again, I got a phone call. And it's on the house phone. It wasn't like you had emails back then or mobile phones or again pagers, whatever. Everything was done on your house phone. So I got a phone call from home from Edmonton to say that I'd been drafted on the 12th round. And at the time, I actually thought it was a joke. I thought it was a joke, and yeah, because you don't know these things. You're just a young guy. And then the NHL, it was on the other teams in NHL were they were a bit pissed off because they thought it was a joke that they were going to, because Edmonton were at that time they'd won, I don't know, 4 or 5 Stanley Cups, or four, I think it was 4 at least in a row. The 12th round draft was normally a guy that it was never going to make it, never got a chance. So they just done it to I don't know if it was to embarrass the league or whatever it was. I've no idea, but it was like, no, why are you doing this? Why would you draft someone from Scotland? So luckily enough, I did get invited across to the training camp, which was fantastic. And going back to what you learned years ago, when I went there, I wasn't prepared or ready to go to compete against these guys, because we were doing fitness testing, and and couldn't even lift like a third of what I did about 5 years later. The VO2s they're what you were doing. They were doing like bench pressing, they were doing cycling, they were doing so many fitness testing, and I was probably bottom of everyone because I hadn't experienced that across here.
Because you wasn't doing that in the BHL, was you?
No,
Not at all.
no. Well, we used to like have our fish suppers before the game, and sorry, before the game. I was after the game, and you would have a bit older. You maybe have a couple of beers, and then that would be it. But it's changed days now, totally changed. So yeah, so I was in. Sorry for going off on one there. I went to Edmonton, and then luckily enough, I done okay to get invited back the next game year, which was really good. I actually managed to play a game for it's not in the record books actually, because it was just an exhibition match, but I managed to play one game for the in the NHL for the Oilers, which was really nice. I think it was 2-2 game. I think I managed to get a point actually, which was
nice,
which was pretty good for that. No, but you know what I mean. So I was quite. It's one of the things I have been really proud of, that to be able to even to get to that level, because it was such a huge step up for what I'd ever experienced in my life. It was crazy.
Glenn Saver said you were the smartest player on the ice at camp outside of Wayne Gretzky. And when he's saying that, I mean, that's got to hold some weight, because that year, like you say, they had recently just won all their cups. It was like Messier, Gretzky, Curry. I mean, the list was endless. And to hear him say that, what was that? What was that like?
I don't know. It was really nice of him, to be honest with you, because Glenn was really like a hard-nosed, like obviously a very successful general manager and coach, and he was really hard-nosed, so he wasn't one to give a lot of compliments out. So that was pretty nice. I mean, he did speak to me, and like when I was across here, I did have a meeting with him. We can go in there, and I was to negotiate a deal, and here's me trying to negotiate with the most successful general manager in NHL, and I went in the room and he had a cigar going, and he was just asking me about the game and what I thought of it, and I was quite honest. I find reading the game, it sounds like, and you know me, please don't think I'm talking out of turn or acting like an idiot, talking like a big shot here, but I find the game quite easy, like to understand and read.
Yeah, I've played against you, mate. I know you do.
I know you do. I get no, but I don't mean it that way. But I was fortunate. I understood the game, and I understood what other players were going to be doing, and figuring out things pretty quick. I wasn't the fastest skater, and I wasn't the best at scoring, but I actually understood the game. And sometimes I find that easier, like speaking to people like yourself, or speaking to people in the room, the players or other coaches, rather than like sitting on the media and talking about it. But I was fortunate. I found that, so I think that's why he was, when I had the chat with him about what was going on in Scotland and that. So anyway, going back to Sather, when he actually said to me, he says, "What would you? I would want you to go and play in the American League," and I says, "Look," I says, "That's not. I'll think about it." But I just loved it. I loved it being in Scotland. I loved playing in Britain, and family were here. And in retrospectively, or in hindsight, yeah, it would have been fantastic to give it a go and see how it went. But that's just the path I took, and sometimes you just got to move on with that. And I'm no regrets. It's just how it is.
You did go down and play in the WHL and put up 8 points in 3 games, though, right? So I think had you stayed the course, we would have seen you as an NHL regular. I mean, there's been umpteen articles over the years, you know, the best player that outside the NHL, the guy that should have been there, X, Y, and Z, whatever you want to call these articles. Talent-wise, you're definitely there. But like, I'll go back to what Glenn was saying. I haven't played against you. I know you're being very modest about it, but it was ridiculous the way that you would see the game and see passes that other people don't see, know where people are going to be before they even knew they were going to be there. Like, you can't coach that.
Well, to be honest, I think sometimes to a certain extent, I think sometimes you can't, obviously not 100%, but I think you can. What I've seen in players over the years is that we label players and this is myself as a coach, we sometimes label players, it doesn't matter what sport, it could be football, ice hockey, or rugby, or whatever. We say, oh, they don't have the IQ, or they don't see the game. But I think a lot of that is just basically just is confidence. And if you're a competent player, you'll make good decisions. If you're not a competent player, or if you have a coach who's continuously fucking berating you and telling you how shit you are, and you're never going to do well, and that's what they used to do 30, 40. They would tell you how bad you are, and hopefully you react to it.
Hopefully you try and shove a rocket up your ass. And
and you're like, it works maybe once in every 1,000 players or whatever. I don't know what the percentage is, but obviously, if you tell people long enough that they're not very good, they won't be good. And I think sometimes maybe some coaches, if they just spent a bit of time with the players, or maybe went through video, or maybe can show the players in a different scenarios, the confidence does come, and they will make these good decisions. But we have we sometimes label players too quickly, and I've seen it so many times with we get us dealing with younger players for I don't know how many decades now. And we continue to say, "Oh, the guy, he doesn't understand the game." And well, he does understand the game. He just maybe I fucking taught him.
Just needs a bit more confidence on the park, or time, or whatever it may be.
Yeah, there's so many things we can teach the younger kids nowadays. Sorry, Nicky, I went off on one there.
No, mate. Hey, this is what this podcast's all about. There's no filter. Right. The younger days for you meant playing alongside the likes of a couple of our former podcast guests, Mr. Paul Heavey, Mr. Ivan Matulik. What was it like being a young part with all these big dogs in town? They were great lads.
They were great guys. We used to, what a laugh we had. That was
that's why you didn't want to leave, right?
No, I remember when we were. It wasn't about like as much as the results. Everyone wanted to win. There's no point in trying to do something if you want to finish. You can finish in bottom or just mediocre. You've got to want to win. You've got to want to push your boat out, or can step outside your comfort zone to improve. There's no two ways about that. But it's so important as a team to gel as a team. To feel that you go on into the dressing room, you're looking forward to going there, you're looking forward to going nice, you're looking forward to going to the bus with the guys, you're looking forward to seeing the guys after the game. We had that in Murrayfield, and I had it for many, many years when I was there. And I had it at Sheffield for a little bit. When I played at Ayr, it was a little bit like that. And even and you find teams who are great. If you have a good dressing room, it makes your job a lot easier as coaches as a player. And we had so many good characters there. As you say about Ivan, you had Paul Heavey, you had Paul Hutton, my brother. There was Mike Ware. There was
what was it like when Big Mike Ware? What was it like when Big Mike Ware came over for the first time?
Oh, he's a lovely guy. Mike.
Unless you're playing against him.
Well, if you want to, what people don't understand is when I was in Edmonton, there was quite a few guys who came across from that team in Edmonton, who came across to Britain to play. Mike Ware was one of them. I was at camp with Mike Ware, where he had five fights in the one game. I had Ivan Matulik, he was there. Scott Metcalf was there. He was at Sheffield. Sarah Malodine was there. There was a few other guys. So I've got to know these guys from abroad. But no, Mike Ware, is a good guy. But Mike always is one of these guys who was as tough as nails, but he always thought someone else was started to fight. He never started to fight. Everyone else had caused it. Oh, but he's a lovely guy, good guy, and a great team guy.
You got to play through all the eras. You just touched on Ayr Scottish Eagles there. How cool was it being part of that? And I think the Centrum, the ice rink itself, it's a crime that's no longer there. But that was perfect setup for the right size, a good venue. They packed it out. They put on a good product on the ice. Obviously, you got to be a part of that. What was that like?
It was great. I loved it. I was in Scotland. It wasn't far from Edinburgh where I was living. But going back to where you're talking about the teams there earlier on with imports. The first year I was there, I was only Scottish guy or British guy on the team. Everyone else was an imported player. So there was 20 odd imports in the team, and I was only Scot. The second year, there was I think it was myself and Jonathan Weaver. There's only two Scottish guys in the team, so there was even more time. No, we've got the 16 imports now, but at one time there was actually probably 20 imports. Yeah, which is absolutely crazy.
When the hockey was unreal, by the way, though.
Yeah, it was. I mean, the hockey was great. The second when we were there, I mean, when we talk about the players, most of the players who were there, they were top. Our fourth line guys were top East Coast League player, again, top scorers in the East Coast League. Again, they were in their first line, all had NHL experience or Swedish Elite League experience or Czech Elite League. They were all top players, and there was no duds back then. Even your tough guys could play.
And there was a few of them back then in the Super League days.
Oh yeah, there's been quite a few tough guys over the years. I'm glad that I wasn't a fighter, so I didn't have to fight them. But there was some really tough guys, but most of them are good guys. You'll find most guys and ice hockey players are pretty decent guys.
You didn't fight that much, but you did make an exception once or twice for Grant McPherson. What was your battles like with G? Because he's another one. If you play against him, everyone probably thinks he's a dick. You speak to him for 5 minutes, and he's the biggest diamond ever.
He's a nice. He's a good kid. But Grant, no, but it's just something. Grant is always he's winding guys up. It wasn't me, but he would sometimes wind up guys like our imports, and I think that's what his job was to do. And because imports didn't know any better, they were like But because I was sort of maybe on their line at the time, I was probably the nearest guy to him to sort of help him out. But he was a good guy. And he could actually, for a small, he wasn't that tall or big, but he could handle himself for being that. But he was fine. But I think he was just trying to get. It was mainly when things were going bad for his team. I don't know if his coach sent him out or if he just done it himself. But there was no malice involved in it. It was just happened at the time. And then,
do you remember when he fought Schnabel up at your place?
Oh.
No one wanted to fight Schnabel. Here's Grant, not only fighting him, taking his helmet off and squaring up with him. You're like,
he was a gamer. I give him that. I think Robert Schnabel took it easy on him. I don't think he. Yeah. I think he didn't, because he was another big tough guy.
Yeah, and he could play as well. He was a real good player. We're talking a little bit, rolling it back a little bit. You were talking about like the technology and the off ice and all that. We can't not talk about your skates. You wore higher skates basically through your early career. What was it about like the Bauer Turbos that you loved so much?
I think I was one of these players who, if you felt comfortable, I always think if you feel comfortable in something, why change? That's just how it was. I play golf now, and I like, if I've got golf clubs, I like playing them. When I was I had sticks when I was younger, I would play the same stick because I think consistency or is, if you feel comfortable, you'll do well. So anyway, in the days we didn't have the array of skates that are available just now, where you have everything is different about them. It's like Kevlar made, and the way they're the width and everything is involved in it. Whilst when I was younger, we only had probably a handful of skates that you could play with. And I started using these Bauer Turbos, which were horrendous, but they felt good. They felt good. So I just kept wearing them my whole career. And I've got an old pair of leather ones now, but they just don't feel comfortable at all. When I think I bought up just about every pair I could find in Britain, but I don't think if anyone's got a size 8, they were left, I'm happy to buy them off them because I'm desperate for a pair.
I was going to say, this is a place to do it right now. So, ladies and gents, you heard the man. If you got a pair of size 8 Bauer Turbos, let's make it happen. Because honestly, it'd be wild, like seeing you just wheeling around, dominating in what was essentially a pair of session skates.
Well, when I went to Edmonton, though, what's funny, Kevin Lowe, who was one of the best defensemen who ever played the game in the NHL, he was wearing them.
Was he really?
Yeah, he was wearing them. I think the week after, I think Gretzky put a pair on when he seen me with them on. See what I was on.
See what you're all about. That's so funny because, like you say, now your feet are going into this DEXA scanner thing, and they're saying, right, you need this and that, and you're wide there, and they're just custom making them to your feet.
That's crazy. I've had a player not long ago. He wanted to two pair of skates because because he wanted to make sure the width and everything involved, the weight mold around his feet, he wanted to make sure that it was the exact same ones. And you're talking millimeters here, millimeters. Yeah. And I'm like, well, that's not happening. I can show you. So
get one pair like it.
Yeah, that's how it goes.
Comes out your budget, man.
Of course it does. All counts, all adds up.
Is it?
No, but it's good the players have to feel comfortable. I understand that. Like we're having a laugh here, and it's important to give the players every opportunity to proceed, but and to do well. But they can obviously, I think sometimes don't get too carried away with a millimeter here or a millimeter off your stick. We had guys who used to, like when I was playing with the sticks, and if a stick was like I'm talking about a hair's out, hair's width out, he would like, I can't use it. I'm like, no, that's just ridiculous. That's ridiculous. But it's up there. But if that's what made him feel comfortable and score goals, well, again, that's what made him do it. So yeah, just say again, go for it.
You've been involved as a player, then you had your stints as player coach, you've done directors, you've done GB, you've done junior GB, you've done it all. What would you take away from the journey in terms of going from player to all these different roles?
I think the player coach, when I first started, I was fortunate enough I could do both, because it's sometimes difficult. I was a decent enough player that I could still play as well as contribute to the coaching. So I sort of learned my curve at the start, and obviously I'd learned from a lot of coaches just over the years, and going to different seminars and watching countless videos about coaching. But one of the things I first noticed, Nicky, when I first started was I used to get frustrated about why players weren't picking it up too quickly. Again, you're saying, look, guys, we're going to go F1 to F2, and other guy's going to swing off the wall or whatever. And I had the guys who'd be like, I'd be watching down the ice and like, they're not doing this. But then I come to realize it was actually, I never come to realize it was a player a really good player for us, a guy called Martin Vita. When I was worked in Dundee, he was a Swedish boy, very, very knowledgeable. And I sort of leaned on him sometimes just to say, look, and just get a feel, because I was, even though I was 30 years old at the time, I was still learning, and I'm still learning now as a coach. And I say to him, I says, what's happening here? Why are they not understanding these breakouts? And they're actually, he said, look, some of these players don't learn as quickly as maybe you pick the game up or how you see the game. So I was coaching players how I've seen it, but some of these coaches, I've got to strip it back a little bit and say, look, this is how you have to see it through the players' eyes, how they're doing it, and speak to them and communicate with them. But I think back then it was like everyone was like, it was just old school coaching where you got frustrated if things didn't work out. But I don't get as frustrated now as I used to be. I used to get if things don't work out. So now I realised is to if something doesn't go right nice, is strip it back, speak to the players, and get it sorted, rather than coaches going off in one and throwing their water bottles or sticks away. Can think about it. And back then, that's what happened years ago. That's what happened. But nowadays, I think it's good to be able to sit and speak to players and develop them through the proper coaching methods, rather than screaming and shouting,
screaming and bullying.
Yeah, until I understand it. So that's just how it is.
Yes, it's interesting though. You've had a couple of really cool. Well, I don't know if you'll think it's cool. You don't like pumping your own tires up that much, but you got a couple of cool accolades. You got the MBE, which way back in 2014 for services to ice hockey. How proud of a moment was that for you? And am I right in thinking that it was the Queen that delivered that gave that to you?
Yes, you're right, Nicky. I was fantastic. It's obviously something that's obviously really special to me, not just me, but to my family and the people in the sport. Because I think I was the first person, the first hockey player at the time, I might be wrong, who'd actually managed to receive it for the service to ice hockey. And it was great to see Colin Shields get one this year, which was really nice, because he's done a lot for the sport as well.
Certainly has.
But going back to mine, I got a letter. What happened is you got a letter through the door. And once again, I thought it was one of my mates winding me up, like saying, because what you're told is, if you accept us, you have to promise you will not tell anybody about it, or you can't say anything to anybody.
Oh, really?
Because obviously, because if you do, then, for instance, if you went on radio and say, "Oh, by the way, I've just been given an MBE, or I'm going to get an MBE," then they would probably not give it to you, because obviously
what he's down the bookie, he's got a few quid on it.
So we didn't. You weren't allowed to mention or tell anybody, and I was like, I don't know if this is going to happen. And then you got a phone. I think it was a phone call. They tell the press on the day. I got mine in New Year's Honours, so I was told by the press on the day, and then obviously there's an embargo on the press release, and then it starts from there. So I was fantastic, and to be honest, I'm a sort of royalist. I'm not so much as I'm a royalist, but I'm the Queen more probably than a royalist, because I thought she was brilliant for the country. And to get off her up, luckily I only live 5 minutes from the palace at Holyrood, so we just went around there to the palace to receive it, which was a fantastic day. And I just say it's something you can. It wasn't just for me; it was for everyone involved in sport and my family.
Did you have a kilt on?
I did actually, yes. I did have a kilt, and I had a ski and do as well, which before I got on there, I got a tap on the shoulder. I think it was some boy for the SAS.
Yeah, you're not allowed that.
He tapped me on the shoulder and said, "Excuse me, sir, do you mind? Can you just put that away for the day?" I said, "No problem." So yeah, so I had the ski and do. So, and then you're lucky enough I got a minute or two speaking with the Queen on a one-on-one basis, which again, it's not everybody gets to do. So yeah, it was brilliant.
And then the other honours that I wanted to ask you about is, well, it was a no-brainer. You was always going to the British Hockey Hall of Fame, but you also got inducted to the IIHF Hall of Fame as well. How cool was that?
That was really cool. Went to Cologne to get it.
What spot?
I think it was 2017. I had a great time. So 2017, and what was really cool, I mean, before you go into the to get it, you're all with the other awardees, and I go into this room and I'm standing there, and there's Joe Sakic, there was like Timo Solani, and like there was other, and I'm like, what am I doing here?
What's going on?
Thinking, what am I doing here? And Timo Solani came across. He says, "Can I get my photograph with you?" Because I had my kilt on, and I was like, so I thought it was really surreal. And a lovely guy. And I was sitting beside Joe Sakic, who's the general manager of Colorado, and another lovely guy, just sitting there getting it. And obviously, I'm thinking, so what's this guy from Scotland sitting beside these guys for? Because they say they're, and the good thing about these people, I keep saying it, sorry for stressing about it, and people obviously, why do you keep saying it? It's just, they were actually nice, really nice people. They don't sit and talk about themselves. They don't like put other people down. Again, they were basically, again, they weren't trying to make themselves impressive. They were actually good people, good, genuine, nice people. And that's what you find. And I mean, you do get the odd person in the sport who is continuously trying to put other people down to make themselves look better. But again, the guys at the top probably are, again, they're good people, and normally they're, again, you want to spend a bit of time with them.
Well, it's an amazing achievement. The other thing that we'd never seen before in British hockey, you're a pioneer of a lot of things. You were the first to, well, to my knowledge, I could be wrong here, so I'm sure some history buff's gonna pump me right now. But you were the first to release an autobiography.
I think you
were the first. You might be the only one. I don't know if there's been anyone else.
No, I'm not very sure. Is there? Has there been anybody else?
I don't know. There you go. At us on 4,000 account on Twitter. Let us know, because we haven't got a clue.
It'd be good to hear. Yeah, it was good. It was done with a boy, Michael Appleton, who done most of the research and most of the writing for it. I mean, to be honest, it was a test case, but it went really, really, really well. I was surprised. Even now, I'm still getting people asking me can he sign my book? Can I sign my book? And it was good. I mean, to be honest, going back, could you go back and maybe have changed a few things and made it a bit better? Of course, but for the first go, I don't think it was too bad.
Would we see a second potentially, or no?
I'm thinking about it. Once I'm away from hockey, because there's so much things I've got to say that I'd like to write about. But it's one of these ones that
while you're still in there, you want to wait.
Nothing just now, to be honest. I can't complain. Hockey's it's been good to me. It's again over the years, and hopefully I put some a little bit back into the sport. So I don't really go around looking for vengeance or fights or and I like people. The thing is, so I generally like most people to do well in sport. So again, it doesn't. I'm not that sort of person.
So you speaking of other firsts, I think this might be, I'm not sure if it's in the public domain as of yet, but there is a movie currently being made about your great self there. Talk us through getting this off the line, and who came to you to get it going, and what's it about? I'm exciting.
Well, it's more a sort of movie, sort of documentary. Nicky, it's a player. Sorry, an ex-player called Grant Slater. Not Grant Slater, sadly, the one who passed away again recently. Who was an ex-teammate of mine, and you just say again, it was such a shame what happened to him.
It was,
but it's another Grant Slater who's actually he played across year, I think maybe and it was a number of years, I can't remember the exact year it was. I think he played a bit in Nottingham and a bit in Telford. But he's been a director in movies with his brother. He's been for many years, and they're based in North America. So they came across this has been going on for about a year now. But people don't understand, or not people don't really know about it, but they've been across here filming. They came across it for 3 or 4 days. They went up to the palace, Edinburgh, the house, down to what I do every day. Where I was brought up. I was brought up on a council estate, which is pretty rough area in Edinburgh. So they went down there for the day, which I think they were a bit scared actually because the crowds were coming out and they were heckling them. But I said, "No, you'll be fine.
You'll be fine."
So anyway, so they went down there for the day. They've been across in North America filming. They've got actually, if you go on Spotify, they've actually Murray DeCock, who's a composer stroke songwriter. He's got all these songs on songs on Spotify. Obviously, they've still got to edit them, but there's about 10 songs about the film or the documentary. So if anyone wants to go and listen to that, you can listen to them. But obviously, they've still got to get edited. So anyway, the whole point of it was how did somebody from the council estate and the life story is in Edinburgh grow up and then get a chance to play in the NHL. Because they're like, how did that happen in Scotland to there? So that's the story behind it, and he's now doing the
hard work.
He's done all the hard work, and I've seen some snippets of it, and it looks a great show, and he's really happy where it is. So they're now just doing the final editing, which should hopefully in the next few months it should be ready to go. But obviously. I just thought a movie they'd just be filming it and it'd be over and done with in like a few days. But this is quite they're professional. They're professional filmmakers, so they're going to make sure it's right.
Do we know what platform they're planning on airing the movie on?
I'm not very sure what platform, Nicky. I think that's up to them. They would then what they said they look at doing is showing it in a cinema in Edinburgh and invite all my friends and family along. And then they would then move it on to hopefully a Netflix or Amazon Prime, or I don't really know. That's their department to do that. But hopefully
that's exciting.
It is exciting, but it'll be interesting to see because I hate watching myself on the even doing this. Yeah. I'm not one of these persons. I enjoy being on film or watching myself because it's just how I am. But I would be looking forward to that. But I'd be pretty nervous.
Oh yeah, I'd be bricking it. There's no two ways about it. I'd be bricking it. But like I interviewed AJ Galante. I'm not sure if you see the Netflix Untold Crime and Penalties documentary about the Banbury. So yeah. I had him on here, and he was saying, dude, he thought the same as you. Like 3 or 4 days here or there. He was like, it was wild. It was full on. You got crews of guys, everyone's getting involved, and then obviously they went on Netflix and done exceptionally well. So there is appetite for hockey documentaries on Netflix. That would be great.
That was a crazy show. Even people who are not involved in ice hockey wanted to see that.
Yeah,
and it was even my friends. I've golfed with people I've golfed with, and friends of mine they were like, I couldn't believe what was going on. I said, well, it's fact. It wasn't made up. That was actually how it was.
Yeah, it is. It is wild. Let's have a little chat about the golf game then. How's the golf game shaping up? Whereabouts you
I'm
remember?
actually a place called Archerfield, just on the east coast in Edinburgh. I've been down, or Edinburgh, sorry, Lothians. It's outside Lothians. It's really just beside Muirfield.
Nice.
I've been there for about 50 years, but I'm okay. I'm getting there.
You get around.
But I get around, yeah.
Do any of like the old hockey boys come out and golf for you or anything up there? Because
no, I still keep in touch. I mean, I keep in touch with a few guys abroad, like Ed Courtney and Ivan and the Tulip. I was at a barbecue the other week. There was Scott Plews was there, who's a character and a half.
Yeah,
and like I see Murray Hansen and Paul Belton from time to time, and I catch up with Lindsay Lovell for a pint. But I still speak to players on the phone, again, but not as much as when you're getting a bit older, you've got other commitments, you've got families, you've got and then people sort of move on. But yeah, I still keep in touch with quite a few.
Some of the names you just listed out there are some absolute diamonds.
They're good guys.
We've had Plusy on here before, and as funny as Plusy was, actually, when he came on to do his episode on here, we spoke a lot about mental health, and you know, he's a big advocate of that. And he came on, and when you hear someone as big, tough as that come on and lay it on the line, I think that helped a lot of our followers, a lot of our listeners that went through it as well, or going through it, and I can't respect Plusy enough for doing that.
Yeah, I know Plusy's a good guy, and as you just say, yours when you talk about going back retrospectively about coaching, we didn't mental health, and I'm not an expert in mental health by any stretch of imagination, but it's definitely prevalent in the sport world, in any part of the world. But for us in sport, we weren't aware of that 30, 40 years ago. So we were just coaching everyone the same, but sometimes we have to be aware that there is players who maybe are a bit fragile and maybe need that little bit of help or a little bit more time to, how would you say it? A little bit more time to sort of with them to try and sort of can talk to them and just any issues they have is come and speak to the coach. I always tell that to every player. Who I coach. I say, if anyone wants to speak to me, you and if it's in total confidence or if you need a help, again, my phone's always on because it's important to be able for these kids or these players to reach out when things aren't going well.
Yeah, especially when you've got younger guys, they might be away from home for the first time. Like we do have imports, but we have Brits moving up and down the country to go play places. It's nice for them to feel that they've got an outlet where they can go release, talk to the coach, and say, hey, you know what, maybe I do need some help.
Of course, and you say I think every coach who's coaching, again, as much as it's about winning, but it's also about the well-being of the athlete or the player, regardless, because it's not all about players again who are trying to get to the elite league level. Again, there's a place in sport for players who just want to play the game, and they need that sort of again a little bit of time. If need be, to speak with a coach or a manager or someone within the program who can help and hopefully can give them some good advice.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we're living in a generation where that happens now. You moved away from the second level of UK hockey with Manchester Phoenix in 2017. You had a year doing Great Britain. Then you went back up the road. You went back up to Murrayfield between like 2018 and 2001. Is it frustrating that Murrayfield aren't playing at the top level? Obviously, you talked about selling that place out with three imports and a bunch of British guys. Is it frustrating not to see them at the top?
It's a difficult one because it's a business, Nicky. This is what we can as I would love to see Edinburgh again, and as much as again, well, I'm not part of that club anymore. It'd be nice to see them happening, but logically, again, unless someone's willing to pump money into it and lose quite a bit of money, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense unless you're going to get 2,500 people a game, or even maybe 2,000 people a game to make it break even. Because the stress, I mean, some of these teams in the elite league, when you're trying to compete with the likes of Sheffield and Belfast, who are again really well run clubs with a great fan base who are attracting top players, It must be tough to say, like, okay, we're starting the year, and again, the only thing we can hopefully do is try and make the playoffs. And that's not kind of dig at the. It's a reality.
Yeah.
A lot of these teams are playing to make the playoffs, and that must. And as long as, and I think as long as the supporters understand that and the players understand that, it doesn't mean you're not trying to achieve or finish as high as possible. Of course you are, but it is difficult. I can imagine for these clubs to financially trying to pay the bills each month, or even just break even.
Five Flyers are prime.
Compete.
Five are a prime example right now.
I think
Manchester
Fife,
as well.
I think Fife are very lucky that obviously they've had Tom Muir there for a number of years, who's obviously a pretty shrewd businessman who's managed, and also I think they own the rink, so it makes it a lot easier. But a lot of these rinks now, again, I don't know, the electricity bills or utility bills must be going through the roof.
Yeah.
So again, these teams must find it tough. Again, if you were a rink operator, a rink owner, to try and just pay the bills because of even just the utility charges just now. So yeah, go back to your question about the Murrayfield. Would it be good to see them in it? Well, if put it this way, if I was going back now when we had Murrayfield a few years ago, we wouldn't be going into it. No. Because we couldn't afford it. So I can imagine that's probably the same case for the new owners.
Yeah, you probably need someone worth at least
$1 billion.
I was thinking you probably need someone with at least $1 million to bankroll an elite league season.
And maybe the rest.
Maybe that's just the one season. Yeah, it's got to be sustainable. Right, you took a couple of years off, and you're now back in the game. You've come south of the border. You come to join the Whitley Bay Warriors, taking over from Lobby and his team there. It's a fresh start. Solway are out the league. Talk us through why you came back in the game, and are Whitley looking to win that league this year with Solway being gone? I would expect them to be in the mix.
We stopped because obviously COVID. So it can kill the game for about a year and a half, 2 years. And I was I had a few opportunities to go elsewhere, and I thought, no, I don't want to be traveling too far, and I want to go to a club that you can sort of trust the people who are involved in the club, and I thought, let's have a chat with Whitley. So I spoke to the rink owners at Smiths, Geraldine and Francis, and their family, and they were really, really nice people. And I thought, that'd be a pretty good place to see how it goes. So we decided to go down there, myself and Willie Dunn, who's the general manager, to say, look, we'll take over after David Longstaff or Lobby, who's stepped down, and Paul Matthews was the general manager. They stepped down, I think, in a couple of months before the season finished. Yeah. So we spoke to the Smiths a few times, and then they says, let's go for it. We'll give it a shot. And they've been more than helpful, as well as all the people who are in Whitley Bay, that people who are around the club. They just really want the club to do well, and I think it's probably, in all due respect, it's maybe needs a little lost its way a little bit to some extent. Where and that's not a disrespect to anyone in the club. I think it needed maybe a little bit of fresh input from. It wasn't just to try and making someone with a bit of experience after David had stepped down. So it says maybe that's been a good fit for me. Maybe that's what the rink thought. I don't know, because I've got the experience of running teams. So we went down there. I've had a good look at the players. They've got a few good young players there. Obviously, they need developed, and I can see that right away. I think it needs a new sort of culture, change in culture a little bit, where players are a bit more, how would you say, committed,
a bit more accountable, maybe,
accountable, committed, yes. Not all of them, because there's a lot of there's good players there as well who are committed, but part of the process when you sign up to a team, you can't be. It's not an in and out. Well, understand players maybe have work commitments, or that happens. Okay, that's no two ways about that. They've got family commitments. That happens, but you can commit off the ice. You can get to the gym. You can keep in shape. You can You can work hard at the rink. You can work hard at the game. So again, we're just wanting players to sort of buy in to that side of it. So far so good is what I've seen. We've got, as I say, we've got a lot of work ahead of us and a lot of preparation for the season. But we'll be fine. I think we'll be fine. I think there's a few good teams there. How well we'll do is difficult because we've lost a few guys who are probably a few guys retired. And hopefully we'll get a few who are probably the main sort of offensive threats. But that then gives opportunity for the younger guys to get an opportunity to be an offensive threat. So we'll do that. As you say, we'll have a bit of work to do, but we'll be fine.
I think the NIHL 1 North is going to massively grow on the back of you being there. It's bringing a lot more ice to it. The fact that Solway are out the league, I believe, helps the league as well because, let's face it, for the last 6-7 years, they've just run away with it. They've been too good. I mean, they're having seasons where they're not losing games and stuff. So you when we talked about it before, you don't want to be playing just to make the playoffs. Well, for the last couple of years, some of these teams were playing not even to be committed for the title just because Solway were pretty much guaranteed to pick the title up. I think the league as a whole should be more competitive due to that.
Yeah, I think. I mean, to be honest, I would have much preferred to have seen Solway in it because then it
gives you a rival.
It gives you a rival, and it creates because you don't want people to hand. It's like not by any stretch of the imagination. Don't know how it's going to pan out with Whitley, but I think Whitley Bay will be one of the stronger teams in the league. But you also want to create sort of competition. So, and that starts with the bottom up. Again, you don't. For me as a team, as a coach, I'd like our players to be playing in games where it's 4-2, 3-2, 3-1, not winning 10-0 or 11-0. I don't think that benefits and this is where the British hockey can sometimes maybe learn a little bit, and it is difficult because a lot of, as I say, there's so many moving parts in the game. But again, when you get teams who are consistently, Solway last year were winning most of the games by, apart from maybe they played Whitley or Billingham, maybe a few close games against the other team, they were winning games like 10, 12-0.
Yeah.
And that's nothing. And that's, to me, I wouldn't want to be playing in that, even though I have done it when I was younger. I think now the days have changed where it's not good for the offensive team or the defensive team. Because I've seen it at all levels at national team where players who are in games where they're winning too easy. You can see when you see it to come to camp, sometimes you can see that defensively they're switched off because they've never really had to play defense all year.
Yeah.
So it's things that hopefully, I think you're right, Nicky, that it'll hopefully consolidate a league a little bit, but give it hopefully I'll be a bit closer all the games.
The infrastructure they have around Whitley, they've got good fan base, they've got great history, and they've got the potential to be a huge club once again. Is there any talk? Obviously, we've seen Solway take that step up. Is there any talk of Whitley Bay ever stepping up to the National League? Has that ever been put on the table at all?
I think they'll probably take it one step at a time. The issue you've got sometimes is once again, it's finances dictate a lot of what's going on, and obviously players have to buy into it as well, because it's fine saying we're going to Whitley Bay are going next year to the NHL, which I think which have really got their act together over the last few years. I think they're really turning into like their coaches, their players are a lot more professional than they were a number of years back, and you can see that in the results. But if we turn around to Whitley Bay and the players say, by the way, we're all going to play in the NHL, and you're like, well, again, you have got to buy into it. Like, and if you're not getting, or there's got to be a scenario where, again, let me finish that for a second. Like, I don't want to sit.
No, mate, go for it. Take time.
The reason saying is that I don't want to get into the finances and all that sort of stuff, because I don't know what other teams are spending. So going back, the NHL North is something they would look at. I think that would be something for the owners to look at, the Smiths and ourselves. But at the moment, I think they're quite comfortable where they are. But you never say never, because as you say, they've got a great fan base down there in Whitley, and they might want to see where it can to play at that higher level as well as the players. But at the moment, it's not to be discussed.
Because obviously, since well, from your era, we lost Durham. And then from my era, we lost Newcastle. And then Whitley have never really been back up near the top since probably the 90s. So like there's definite like appetite for top level hockey in the Northeast. I mean, Durham used to be packed out. Newcastle was packed out. Whitley Bay was Ramo. Like they were ramming the rinks up in the Northeast. So it does show like if eventually it all aligns business wise, there would be the appetite for hockey at that level.
Of course, I mean it's got a great tradition in Northeast, like you had to say in the days you had Durham, Billingham, or Whitley Bay. It was fantastic, and obviously you had the Newcastle. They had a good team. They were in the elite league or the Super League, and then obviously the other leagues in there. So there is definitely an appetite for it. But hopefully this is just the start of a journey for us at Whitley Bay, and hopefully we can can get a bit more interest in the sport around there and build it. And hopefully in the next 2 or 3 years, if they decide that's the route they want to take and go into that NHL, then that's something that the rink owners and the Smiths would have to decide. Because ultimately, there is a huge cost factor going into these leagues, and obviously you want to make sure that you can afford it, and everyone's got an appetite for it. But I think they say the NHL is going in the right direction, so we'll see what happens.
With your coaching personally, is this like a nice reintroduction to you? Would you potentially ever entertain like an elite league job or anything like that, or are you quite happy doing your business and limited?
And I'm quite happy. I get offered probably each year a job either in the elite league. I never got not this year in the elite league. I got offered 2 jobs abroad. And one in the NHL and a couple other ones, but they weren't. But I'll coach now where I'm comfortable, and obviously where I think they can have success. And that's winning something for me is important. I do some consultancy work in coaches from here and abroad, nice, where I advise and help either on the tactics or just their day-to-day running the teams to sort of consult with them, which I'm doing for a few years now, which is good. And I'll speak to a few coaches over the week, and then just for a few hours at a time, just to and they just sort of pick my brains and just get a little bit of advice, and it's good because you say, and I learn things as well from it, because you say that us as coaches, we're always learning and trying to steal ideas and pick brains of someone else. So yeah, so it's good. I'm really, really happy where I'm just now.
Love to hear it. Right. Kept you for a while now, so I want to take you into some cheesy questions to finish up. Unless you got so the cheesy ones, they're not really so much cheesy. It's just the ones that we do all the time. This will be an interesting ask for you, because obviously we've heard your opinion on Brits, but you got to play with plenty of imports over the year. Best player you ever played with or against?
Best player with against. I'll go with there. It was, I would say, technically, but he wasn't the best skater. And he's a good friend of mine actually, and I still keep in touch and speak with is Ed Courtney. When Eddie first came here, he was like, I think when he played his last game, he was a little bit older. But he played 100 games in the NHL, but I think people don't realize that he was 6'4", and he could understand the game and read the game, but his skating that let him down, and he probably wasn't like defensively, probably wasn't the most accomplished like myself. But yeah, as a player, I would say he would definitely have been up there with stuff. But also that guys I've coached, just 2 guys that I always spring to mind, and I have coached a lot of good players, so I'm not trying to leave anybody out. But the team you talked about earlier on about the boy crime penalties, was it called? Who was AJ. In that? It was David Beauregard, who I coached in Manchester.
So
he's a great player, but actually fantastic teammate, and a fantastic guy to coach. Another one that springs to mind is the guy Joe Tallari.
Yeah, he was.
I don't know if you ever played against him, Nicky, but one's also a fantastic hockey player. But these players. These, you still there, Nicky?
Yeah, still got you, mate.
I've thought again, Joe and David were really good team guys, and you normally find it again. There were players. If you get a bunch of guys who kind of all they care about is a team winning, and they're two guys who really stuck out for me. Even though Tech and probably weren't the best players I've coached, but they were up there definitely.
Okay, being on the other side of that, then the best coach you've played for.
The best coach you played for? Oh, I would say Alex Dampier probably had the big influence on me because I'm a lot younger. And the coaches sort of learned from probably mainly with the national team was Chris McSorley.
Yeah.
Chris was very regimental coach, and he had these systems and all that. But when you actually listen to him, he brought a different. It's just there's a lot of good coaches, but what he does, he was bringing a lot of new stuff into the game, which when he came to Britain, I think he brought a new stuff which other coaches jumped on and started learning from him. So yeah, he would have been up there.
You obviously played at every era. We've had plenty of tough guys. Who was the toughest one that sticks out for you?
Oh, the toughest. That's a tough one.
There's a few of them. Yeah, there's a few.
There's a few who I've played with.
Yeah.
There's a number actually. Trevor Doyle at Ayr, who I met Trevor a couple of years ago in Edinburgh. I met him for a drink. He was a big tough guy. Mike Ware, who spoke about earlier on, he was tough, but he was also he's a lunatic. But Brett Cloutey,
he was a tough boy as well.
Pound for pound, probably would be as tough as any of his guys. If he was bigger, was Rob Trombley. Rob is real. Rob is only about same height as me, maybe a little bigger, 5'10", but tough, really tough. And he liked to fight as well, which is again, you find a lot of these guys when they come across you, they're really tough, but they're past that, going doing that every night because they've done that their whole career. But Rob, he was like that. But I think the toughest one who probably I've coached was Mel Ingolstad. Who was, and he's another guy who was who loved to do it and knew his job.
If your nickname's the Mangler, then you're probably pretty tough. Like,
oh no, he was a big tough boy. I done in Belfast, and he was a good guy, a good teammate, and you say and I know I keep saying it, and people go, okay, you must just be making this up. All the guys I've talked about who I've coached, they're all good people. Yeah. And it's crazy. You see them on ice wanting to fight, but when you see them off ice, they're pretty decent. There's a lot of guys like that. So yeah, that's probably the top guys who spring to mind. But I'm pretty sure there's more I haven't mentioned.
They're normally the guys that are first on the charity events. They're first on the signing tables after the games and pumping up all the fans and being like the go-between between the fans and the players, because the tough guys are loved. They're loved.
Now, most of them do. It's not really the other guy. The forwards they're quite reserved. It depends. If you look at all the personalities, most of them though, and I'm not having it, they're North American. I always find that when you get to the Eastern Europeans, who I still have a lot of friends, or the Swedes that are a bit more reserved. So these North Americans, they love and the interaction they have with the fans is really important to the clubs.
Right, one last one. We've kept you for about an hour and a half here. Hope everyone's enjoyed the interview. We're going to finish off with a story for the boys. You've played a long time. Anything funny that springs to mind that over pretty much 4 decades, Tony? Geez.
There's lots, but there's probably quite a lot I can't actually put on
one that can go out without getting you in trouble.
Oh, one that can go out and get me in trouble. Let me think. I'll talk about when we were in Ayr and even in Murrayfield, we used to have guys who come across to abroad and used to come down from Scotland and head down south to head to England. And we got near the border, we used to the guys who's got the passports. So they'd all shit themselves, like in the guys who were just arrived in the country. So they say, I've not got my passport. Say, right, for you to play, you've got to go and hide in the bus. So they used to hide under the bus, like, or where they put the kit bags, or hide in the toilet for about an hour, and then they'd come out. But it's not funny, but at the time it was funny.
All those bus tales are always the best times.
Oh, the bus times were the best. I remember we used to in the olden days, we used to go to Southampton or Streatham and play on the Saturday, and bus it back home, get home at 6, 7 in the morning, and go to the game at 4 in the afternoon to play again. And nowadays, you just like, no, I can't do that. It's just too much for them. It's just too much. Like, no, again, you used to love it. You used to love it because that's what you knew.
Don't know anything different.
Yeah, it was good old days.
Tony, can't thank you enough for your time, mate. I wish you all the success in Whitley Bay and even more success for the documentary. Can't wait to see it. We'll be sharing it far and wide once it's released, so make sure you let us know the date. But yeah, Tony, thanks for your time.
No, thanks for having me on, Nicky. It's been a pleasure, mate.
Oh, loved it. Guys, girls, make sure you like, make sure you subscribe, do all your usual bits and pieces, get this video shared out there. Let's get the hockey fans involved. We'll see you again next week for another episode. Peace.